I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, it's the time of year when we visit with retiring faculty and staff members at Missouri Southern State University, many of them very familiar here on campus as well as in the community. Joining me today, Dr. Jeffrey Macomber from the Missouri Southern Music Department. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Judy. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I know people in the community may recognize you because a lot of your work has brought music to the community.
Well, I like to think that we've made a strong connection with the community of consumers of music and also of students of music in this community. So it's an important connection to make, and I like to think that we've contributed to that, yes.
Right. Well, in this program, I'd like to visit and talk to you about your career. And, you know, people retire, have accomplished careers, but you've been here at Missouri Southern 15 years now. 15
years, yes.
So
yes.
when you want to go beyond coming to Southern, let's go back to the beginning, as people say. You know, people wonder, how did you get into your chosen profession, music? What inspired you?
Well, I went the way that a lot of people went. It was my favorite class in high school. It was the thing I identified with, and with that identification came the gratification of performance and the interactions of other musicians, student musicians, and faculty. So that became an important part of that whole impetus to get started in music. And so naturally went to study music at the university level, and had misgivings, of course, because a lot of us do, but I was kind of coached back into staying with it, and so I did, and continued on in schooling and in training, and eventually was able to play professionally for a while, and I did that before coming back to the United States. I actually did that overseas in South America, but came back to the United States and resumed studies, doing some doctoral work, and then getting into college and university teaching full-time after that. So
music opens up with a lot of possibilities,
yes,
whether you want to be a performer or a teacher, or, you know, there's a lot of things you can do with the music aspect.
It is. There are many opportunities in music, and there are many gratifying things about music. It's a very transient thing. It's a very temporal thing in that it happens at the moment. It occurs in time. It can be very gratifying or a little annoying, depending upon how it is. But it's one of those things that is addictive in a way, and I think it drives a lot of us, that gratification of being involved in something that we view as being a very noble pursuit.
Now, the performance aspect, a lot of people, you know, you're retiring as a faculty member, a professor in music, but that time when you were performing, share some thoughts about what it was like to be a performer. People wonder.
Well, that was a very transformative time for me. It was a time when I was, of course, much younger. I had the ability at that time to give it a try, and went overseas to do that, and acquired some very important and formative experience doing that. Played with the symphony orchestra for 5 years in South America, and it would be an organization that in North America would be comparable to one of our major symphony orchestras. Now, in South America, you know, it's not really the same kind of culture, although it's really been taking off of late down there. Right. So things are really moving in a very positive direction down there. But this was more of a formative time, and it was a formative for those of us involved in it, and it was formative for the organization itself. And it was a great opportunity to live abroad and to learn to speak a new language and to learn to interact with people who were not part of the tribe.
Right. You experienced a new culture, meeting new people in time.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Did you find that music, no matter what the language difference, you're in a country where they're speaking Spanish, but music tied people together?
Well, I was actually in Brazil where we spoke Portuguese. So it was an opportunity to learn Portuguese, and I am pleased to say that I took advantage of that opportunity. You do learn how to kind of work in that environment, even if you don't speak it. There's a lot of people around who help you, but it's an important thing to learn the language, to become immersed, and to kind of begin to think, act, and do as your colleagues around you do.
So you become part of that
Yeah, you
scenery,
become
part
part of
environment.
part of the environment, really.
Mm-hmm. Great. Music itself, then, if you're working with performers who may not be able to talk to you face to face in the same language, but you can pick up that piece of music and
Yes,
communicate.
that is a common language.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's, people say it's the universal language. I think it's a common language among musicians, and it is universally expressive
Mm-hmm.
in many ways to musicians and non-musicians alike. So
you then made the transition, said, I'm interested in
Yes.
going the academic side.
Right. And so I did that, and was able to start to carve out a career.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with all careers, when you start, very often there are setbacks, and you endure those.
Right.
The thing I found most informative about being a musician and being a music educator is that the most important thing for me has been persistence and resolve.
Right.
And it's, talent is a very elusive thing, but persistence can be there for all of us. And the successful people in this business that I have met have always been very persistent people,
Mm-hmm.
not difficult people necessarily, but persistent people.
Now, are you able to notice when somebody has a real, true passion for music?
Yes, that becomes obvious.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes obvious and is very self-evident in individuals, yes.
Well, I know you've worked with many students and in different orchestras, the philharmonics, groups, and so forth. That's one aspect for those of us who don't necessarily perform, but we enjoy the music, to see that, I was kind of use the word teamwork, but how the chemistry that comes together to put together that music.
It is and that's an interesting part of the process, because that's the part of the process that engages people the most who are involved in it, is the process of that chemistry, building that chemistry, developing through a common goal of preparing piece of music X
Right.
for public performance. That's what we're working on right now. We're about to play the 9th Beethoven
Right.
Symphony, which is one of the great pieces of Western music ever conceived. And we're about to tackle that on Sunday, the May 6th at 3 p.m. in Taylor Auditorium. And we are looking forward to that process because it's bringing so many people together, a choir, soloists, the Southern Symphony Orchestra. It's bringing students together, adults, retirees. It's bringing all these people together in the joy and the excitement of playing and performing one of the great works of musical art in the Western tradition. So we are very much looking forward to that and hope that the community responds in kind to the way we are facing this and putting ourselves into it.
So for the commitment that you have, then sharing with the community who's there to enjoy it and to appreciate the fine music.
We hope so. We hope so, and we hope that we have the kind of performance that people will appreciate and remember.
Well, I know when you look at music, there are so many choices, even instruments. Someone may start off with a 4th grader in the middle school and they hand them a violin and say, start learning music. But how do you see people migrating toward the type of instrument they're going to use or the type of music they're going to play?
Well, that's very often a question of personality, and it's also a social question at the beginning levels, because very often the instrumental choices are made if it is an instrument that we're pursuing,
Right.
or perhaps are we going to be in choir, or are we going to do an orchestra, or are we going to do band? These things are very often social in nature. What is my friend doing?
That's right.
All
They're
right,
going to
what
play
are my
this
friends?
band.
What are the cool kids doing? What instruments are the cool kids looking at? And so that's very often driven by personality type. And there, of course, are aspects of aptitude that are necessary. You have to be able to do certain things on certain instruments to be able to play them. So, and there are certain problems that instruments present at different stages. Flute, for example, is very difficult to start on because of the forming the flute embouchure and getting a sound out of it. Other instruments are a little easier to start on but become more challenging later on, like saxophone, for example. Trombone, which is my instrument, is a very awkward instrument for smaller folks, younger folks, until they kind of grow into it. So it can be a little defeating in that sense. So decisions are very often based on kind of personality. In my case, I played trombone because my older brother did. So
it was a family
thing.
So
it was a family. They got a hand-me-down, and so I went with it that way, and I was perfectly fine with that because, I admired my older brother.
So starting children young, you feel is important to get them introduced to music?
I think it's important to get them introduced to music. The younger the better. I started in 3rd grade with piano lessons. And of course, at the time was very resistant to that. But,
Families
when I look back, that was a very important thing to do. And we started in band in the 5th grade.
Okay.
And so that was when we first started in band.
So that led you
Nowadays,
to the high school?
most groups start in 6th grade. And I think that's a good time to get started and to, again, try, but show some persistence and listen to those teachers and do what they ask you to do.
The
That's a very important thing. The dedication to the craft begins at a very young age.
Now, you working at a university, you're working with students who have had that high school experience,
Yes.
and then they want to come on to higher education. So it's something not only I just did it in high school because it was a course to choose from, they're looking at it perhaps for their career or their choice.
Yes, they are. And it's up to those of us who are the curators of their education to kind of to help them understand what the pathways are, what those pathways look like, and also to help them understand what those pathways don't look like, because very often we have to work with students who may have perhaps a viewpoint which is not fully realized yet. And so we have to try to channel them into a clear view forward in this profession, what it takes. And that's why experienced teachers and trained teachers are a very important part of what we do, and why we try to train the teachers we are trying to teach to become teachers as thoroughly as we possibly can. And we have a great faculty for doing that right now in the music department.
So you probably have a lot of memories over the years of someone who came to Missouri Southern as a freshman,
Yes.
worked their way through the program, and now are
Yes.
very successful.
Yes, we do. We have quite a few. We have some students that were not students we necessarily recruited. These are students who just showed up on the doorstep. I've had a number who are memorable students who just did that and have gone on to wonderful things. And so we really look forward to the surprises that come through the door as much as those we kind of have our eye on.
Right, knowing that
There's
they're
always
talented in high
wonderful
school.
surprises that
Right.
come through the door.
And once someone graduates and goes on, even if they don't pursue a music career, you're
It's
talking about working with the
very
community.
gratifying.
You get people from the community perhaps who still love music enough,
Yes.
they're going to give time to your orchestra.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have people who may do something else, but they've come to Missouri Southern and they've had the opportunity to gain a degree, a college degree, doing something they love.
And,
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
and music can be a lifetime.
Yes, and it is a lifetime pursuit,
They can
obviously.
carry it through from there. Well, a lot of things that you work with in higher education, have you seen a lot of changes at all in the field over the years that you've been working with music?
Yes, I think a lot of the changes have been in the world of technology and the kind of impact that's having on music. Not only the ability to develop music electronically, but also to share it, and to share it while it's still fresh, is really quite remarkable, quite a bit different than it used to be. That, of course, makes challenges in other areas, like understanding things like copyright law and stuff like that. But it's important to embrace technology and to see where it's going, because even as we retain what we do in music and we continue to cherish that which we do in music, there are new doors opening all the time for us, and we must be ready to go through those doors and allow those doors have technology written on them.
Taken to the future of the development and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to performance and being able to understand and read music, how about the composing side of things? And the experience of being able to, I guess, conceptualize, come up with those ideas.
Well, that is a very flighting thing. Sometimes ideas come to an individual who composes. They start with a small idea. One idea leads to another. And they're kind of organic in that sense. Sometimes all someone needs is a title to work with, and that's enough to get them going. So we experiment with that, and I've taught over the years some of the upper division courses in arranging and music theory and things like that, where we have actually looked at music from the composer's standpoint and tried to do some compositions. In fact, this is one of the things that we do at the end of the semester, end of the spring semester, as we start to look at Theory 4 students, and we start to think like composers, and we start to do some compositions, and we listen to a number of compositions today at our 11 o'clock class meeting. So it was very much a very, very fun thing to hear what people bring when they are told that there are no limitations.
So they're free to create.
Yes, they're free to express. We, of course, have training stages that do have limitations, and that's very important to do that. You have to kind of channel the effort, but once they get the go-ahead, now you compose something for you. Then you can start to hear some very interesting things. Heard some very interesting compositions, very interesting concepts of compositions today. So I'm very enlivened by that. It's a wonderful thing to see.
The personalities come out through this as well?
The personalities come out, and they take joy in it. That's the main thing. They take such joy when they do something, and it's fun, and it's satisfying, and it's something that no one else has done
It's theirs.
or even thought of.
So when you mentioned copyright as far as creating an original piece, that is really a personal thing for many people.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's, of course, we're always influenced. I mean, there's only so many ideas circulating out there, I think, and so a lot of what we do in composition is actually reframing now and revisiting ideas that are already out there, using them seeing them in different ways. And we try to help students understand various methods for that kind of madness.
Now, of course, your international experience, and Missouri Southern has an international mission. Do you feel that you've been able to incorporate that international aspect, perhaps, with the students that Missouri Southern has?
Programming, in the fall semester programming for our concerts, always has at least one concert which is dedicated to the international semester, and we do programming from that country involved. That's been obviously easy in some semesters and more difficult in others. But we've always tried to do that, and I remember coming to Missouri Southern in 2002 and noticing with great interest the international mission, and thinking, well, it would be nice if we had a course that worked like the general education course, which was for music at that time, music appreciation. If we had a course on indigenous musics. So we launched a new course, World Music, which I thought fit the international mission. It is now part of the general education offerings in music, and you can have the option of taking music appreciation, which is more of a Eurocentric approach, or world music, which is more of an indigenous approach to understanding the musics of the world besides the Western art music tradition.
It probably opened up a lot of eyes for students. That
I'm sure it did, and now it's a course that we insist our music majors take because it's a very important part of their upbringing and their understanding of the world and the internationalness of music.
You mentioned the international semesters, and some were easy, some were tough. Which perhaps was the most challenging that you recall? Which country or which type of music?
Thailand was very challenging for us, and that was right when I was starting with the orchestra. We had the Thai semester, and that was a challenging one. Fortunately, we found a composer who actually lives in Missouri who was Thai, and was teaching up at UMKC in their conservatory, and we were able to get a modern piece and perform that. So we were very fortunate to be able to do that. The Turkish semester was rather a challenging semester also, but we found there's a great deal of music which is inspired by Turkish indigenous traditions. So we found a number of pieces that had Turkish inspiration, even though they were by Western composers. So those have been some challenges. Really, the Great Britain semester was a wonderful, satisfying semester to work on, as was the Spanish semester. Those were a couple of the more rewarding semesters
ones that
to
really
work on.
stood out in remembering what they have done and so forth. Well, working with the campus and the community, when you look at the accomplishments over the 15 years that you've been here, have you seen a lot of growth in that type of involvement?
Yes, the community involvement with the department, I think, has grown, and the mutual appreciation has grown, I think, over the past number of years. And I think it's not just the community, but it's also the community of educators, music educators, who are in the public schools in this region, who are starting to, I think, understand that there's been a great deal of growth in our department and a great deal of progress in our department, and that we are, I think, in many ways, an department that is a department which is maturing at the right time, and the right time to be a real force in this region for the artistic community. So I view this as being a very, very wonderful kind of growth, organic growth within the community and the musicians.
We hear a lot about when people look at the region or they think about Joplin, we hear the word quality of life a lot of times, but perhaps when they talk about economic development, people want to know, do you feel that you're playing a big role in the quality of life?
I think that's an important role for any community. The quality of life, the quality of access of the fine arts is an important aspect of community life. And I think even if you spoke to CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, they would all tell you that quality of life in the region is a very important deciding factor of locating and relocating, and it's something that people who are perhaps looking for advancement in a particular field, they look at the communities. So it's important to bear that in mind and to continue to support live music, live art, the Spiva Gallery, anything we can do. Connect to culture, anything we can do to support artistic growth in this community is good for the community as a whole.
Well, as you prepare to retire, and a lot of people often ask, what comes next? So what post-retirement plans?
Post-retirement plans. Well, we will be moving, my wife and I will be moving to Minnesota. We've bought a house in a northern suburb of St. Paul. That's where all the grandkids are.
Family, right?
Family is up there. And it's frankly a part of the country that we really identify with.
They have
and
ties,
enjoy,
obviously.
And ties, and really enjoy the opportunity there and just the way the communities are. They're very inviting for us, and we really enjoy those connections there. The opportunity for continued participation in music is very, very strong in the Twin Cities. It is all the neighborhoods and the suburbs and the cities have all kinds of community opportunities, like our Southern Symphony, for example, like that in terms of bands, choirs, orchestras, jazz orchestras, all kinds of interesting opportunities for people who are like me, retired and interested in keeping their hand in.
So you're not going to hang up the instrument.
We're not hanging anything up. This is going to be a new chapter, and I think a very active new chapter. So we're really looking forward to that move.
Great. Well, any final words of advice or tips for success you would give to someone maybe here coming into your department?
That interesting. Persistence. Persistence and a little humility goes a long way.
For success. Students, faculty, anyone?
Students, faculty, and everyone, really. I think those are the two things that strike me as being the most important aspects about being a musician nowadays.
And having been at Missouri Southern for 15 years, what will you miss most as far as being here?
Well, I'll miss of course the friendships, the colleagues, the students, the interaction, the process of having the ability to go to work every day and impact young people. And the ability to go to work every day and work with colleagues like we have in the music department, and the ability to go to work every day and know that you're doing some good. That's a great thing. That's a great feeling. And you just hope to recapture that feeling in retirement in some way. But you'll always look back, because this was where you really practiced it and had the most impact, perhaps.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of opportunities for the future to continue to impact through music and play a role in your new community. So, Dr. Macomber, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for helping to bring this beautiful music to the community over the years.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your interest in this.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.